China is not going to colonize Africa. The problem is your corrupt leaders who go to China with empty bags and come back with money. They want money and they negotiate with money in their mind. So go there with proper ideas, not with corrupt mentality. There's no China that wants to colonize anyone. How do you get colonized now when you are the negotiator? South Africa has surrendered a port now in Durban now. That's colonialism, where you just take your port and give it to other people, surrendering your sovereignty, and later you are going to say people have colonized you. When you go to China and say, give us a power station in exchange for OR Tambo Airport, why would they miss that opportunity? It's not them, it's your stupidity as leaders.
In Uganda, the full subversion of democratic standards, abuse, severe restrictions on civic space, widespread intimidation of opposition figures, fraud, violence, and a nationwide internet blackout. How is it possible that the main opposition candidate, Mr. Bobi Wine, could have been sieged by the military in his house and his family and his wife assaulted by government forces? All of this to guarantee a seventh term in office of Yoweri Museveni. It is just unacceptable, and Europe cannot accept this. I must thank all the political groups that we have convened and made a consensus about this. This is, of course, not just about Uganda. It's about supporting the hundreds of millions of Africans who seek freedom, who seek the right for their voices to be heard, who seek their fight for progress and dignity, but are not allowed to do so through violence and oppression. For decades, this European Union has been engaging with our African partners to try to support free and fair elections. I have myself participated in electoral observations on the continent, and I'm very much aware of the challenges. But we need to do more. We have the means to do more, because today it is Bobi Wine in Uganda. Last year,
if you look at an African country, it calls itself a sovereign country, right? Because it's independent. But in fact, it is not independent. It's not sovereign. Why? Because it depends on foreign financial support. And once they cut off that foreign financial support, that government is gone. So basically, even though you can call yourself president or prime minister, the real power actually resides with the people who are cutting the check for your country. They did not like the example of what Thomas Sankara was talking about to spread around. This is one individual. Burkina Faso does not have nuclear weapons or anything. So why was it a threat to a nuclear power like France? Very easy. Because imagine if every one of those former French colonies started speaking like Thomas Sankara, what would France have left? They killed him basically for no reason. Because that's exactly what they're doing today. When Sankara was trying to get them to do that in the 1980s. Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and now it's spreading. African regions had been trading even before some European countries existed. That England then takes credit for being at the forefront of ending slavery and the slave trade. But what is not said is that England needed to end slavery and the slave trade because it was harming the development of industrial manufacturing capitalism. It wasn't that they woke up one day and said, oh, you know what, I feel guilty for what we've been doing to Africans, so now let's end plantation slavery. No, they had to end it because they needed people to be employed in the factories, not to be locked up on plantation. That was old school capitalism, you see. Now they didn't want that type of capitalism based on trade and commerce. No, they wanted trade and commerce, but in manufacturers. And you wanted those people to be released from the plantations to be literally in the new form of enslavement, which is low wages in factories. You pay them salary and they buy the same products that you're making. And that is why they became at the forefront of abolishing slavery.
Voice of Africa. by Africans.
Who convinced us in Africa that the enemy is each other and not the system that keeps us all in chains? Across campuses, NGOs, and media platforms, identity politics imported straight from Western liberalism has replaced the politics of liberation. We argue about labels, pronouns, and representation, while imperialism extracts our minerals, dictates our currency, and designs our debt. The colonial master couldn't ask for a better distraction. Identity politics divides where the struggle demands unity. It replaces class consciousness with micro-identities and solidarity with self-display. This doesn't mean identity doesn't matter. It does, but it must serve the liberation of all, not fragment us into competing tribes of pain. Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana warned that neo-colonialism would come wrapped in new languages. Today, it speaks the language of inclusion while maintaining exclusion at the economic level. We must return to material politics, land, labor, power, production, because liberation isn't about who you are. It's about who controls what you need to survive.
Something really serious is unfolding in Zimbabwe, and we need to talk about it. Zimbabwe's cabinet has approved a controversial constitutional amendment. The proposed changes could extend presidential terms from 5 to 7 years, shift the election of the president from a direct public vote to a parliamentary vote, meaning the citizens of Zimbabwe may no longer directly elect their own president. That privilege for them to be able to decide who can be their president will be stripped from them. And if this bill passes parliament, the current president could remain in office until 2030, longer than originally expected. So let's ask the uncomfortable question. What is it with African leaders and power? Why does leaving office so often seem impossible? Because we've seen similar political maneuvers across the continent in so many African countries, including Uganda, Cameroon. You see, term limits reversed, constitutions amended, rules adjusted, often benefiting incumbents. This is insane. This isn't just about individual leaders anymore. It's about systems where power is highly centralized, institutions are weaker than executives. You know, when politics becomes a survivor game, extending rule becomes a strategy, not an accident. So here is the real question. Are constitutional changes strengthening stability or weakening democratic rotation? Because across Africa, the fight isn't just about elections. It's about the rules of the game itself. Thank you all for watching this video, and drop your thoughts down there in the comments.
Some African opposition parties are the gatekeepers of power, the flip side of the same coin, the preferred dance partners of the current leaders. And if you carefully scrutinize some political parties, you'll realize their goal isn't necessarily to win, but rather to stay in the pocket by hypnotizing and pacifying the masses into believing in the existence of a countering force to prevent the disruption of the system by the people, while everyone gets paid except the people. Therefore, in instances where the opposition gain power, their leadership is worse than those they once allegedly opposed. You see, African leaders do not fear the people enough, and perhaps the question we never ask, who funds all those political parties? And this should give us a clear indication of where their loyalty lies and who are their masters.
Wait, Nini?
Don't be deluded that the world is full of benevolent individuals and institutions whose only claim to fame is that they want to lift Africa from the morass that she now finds herself in. The reality is, the poverty of Africa is the glory of some civilizations. Poverty is an industry. Ignorance is an industry. Big industry. And there are those who want Africa to continue to wallow in poverty and to wallow in ignorance because it is their safest bet to their continued benefit. The day we wake up to that reality, the safer we are. That is why the English had this beautiful saying, let sleeping dogs lie. So we are sleeping and we are being allowed to lie. And we are being hypnotized into even greater sleep and slumber, to dream even further. But I'm telling us, if Africa is to realize our dream, we must wake up. If Africa is to win the lottery, we must buy the lottery ticket. Why are we ring fencing 30%? Let us ring fence 70%. We must think of another Africa. An Africa where when we talk about technology, Morocco, and I stand to be corrected, is engaged in developing one of the largest solar farms anywhere in the world. Kenya is doing another major solar project, and all African countries ought to be engaged in it. Namibia, I think, is also engaged in it. But if you ask who the consulting engineers are for those projects, they are not Africans. Even the solar panels that are going to be used, the best that African countries will do is to assemble them. They'll be brought as completely knocked down kits, and ours is to assemble them as our children assemble Lego. When we are talking about road infrastructure, I know that sometimes even when we are doing the roads, even the one here, the Kampala and Entebbe Expressway, the contractors, under the guise of something that they now call design and build, will even import steel from their countries, saying that ours has too much carbon content. Sometimes even cement is imported because ours is claimed not to have certain ingredients.
Voice of Africa by Africans.
Breaking news, Zimbabwe's cabinet, the president and his ministers, they have agreed to change the constitution. So this is what they want. They want the presidential term limit to be extended. So instead of 5 years, they want it to be extended up to 7 years. But that's not even the worst part. They want to change the way the president in Zimbabwe is selected. So instead of people to go and vote for the person that they want to be their president, they want the parliament to be choosing the president instead of the voters. So if this motion passes, this means that the current president will stay in power until 2030, and if the parliament will be the one choosing for the president instead of the voters, this also means that the current president is going to stay in power like forever, just like Museveni. He is not going to go out until he dies, just like Museveni. This is not democracy at all, because democracy means that the people have the power, but in this case it seems like the parliament will be the one having the power. People are the one who chooses the president. People are the one who chooses the members of the parliament. Leaders are chosen by the citizens. But in Zimbabwe, it seems like that one is not going to happen. In Zimbabwe, it seems like the parliament will have the power.
The president of Rwanda has now closed over 8,000 churches. It says 6,000 here. It's up to 8,000 churches. Rwanda now requires that faith-based organizations register. They have to meet health, safety, and hygiene standards. They also have to meet leadership credential requirements, which means you have to have a degree in religious studies or theology to be the representative of that church. You also have to have a certificate in religious studies, and you have to do 1,200 hours of religious training and registration fees. You also have to have full financial disclosure and minimum local support. 13,000 worship sites were inspected. 8,000 of those 13,000 were closed because they didn't meet these requirements. Now, the response to this has been mixed. It is considered a public good for things like basic safety and also consumer protection when talking about religion and how that can reduce exploitation. But the concern is that if Rwanda doesn't offer accessible pathways to open up churches, then does the policy just mean rich churches only or state-approved churches only? And so is this really protecting the people, or is this just heavy gatekeeping, which means more state control over religion? Now, for me personally, I'm kind of withholding my opinion until we get some data. We don't really have any data on this. We're waiting for a public independent evaluation to show that these closures really did lead to measurable improvements, like fewer building disasters, specifically reduced fraud, improved public order, better mental health outcomes. But we don't have that data yet, so we're watching this to see how it goes for them. Because on the one hand, if you think about America, if this was tried in America, on the one hand, yes, you could reduce some fraud. But on the other hand, do you really want who's in power right now to be deciding who can open a church? Because that would also be very problematic too.
It is ironic and cynical that Israel wishes to be the only state to recognize Somaliland, while at the same time rejecting the recognition of the state of Palestine, which the overwhelming majority of UN member states have recognized as being legal in terms of international law. It is incumbent on this Council and the entire UN member states to safeguard the norms that have come to define our peaceful interactions. The actions that negate peace, such as the actions of the State of Israel, therefore warrant condemnation.
Guys, have you noticed that the politicians in South Africa right now, currently, they are busy with everything except illegal immigration? Have you noticed? They are busy with all these committees and whatever, which is good, they should do it. But I'm saying they're just neglecting the issue of illegal immigration. We need to put these people in coalition for the longest of time until they get their act together. None of them is competent to lead South Africa right now. Tell me one organization right now, one political party right now that is up in arms, that is upset because of illegal immigration. I'm upset because of illegal immigration. Why? Because there's syndicates in this country. Have you seen how people are missing these days? Young and old, hey, people are missing. From nowhere, people are missing. What's happening to those people? You think they're taking them on vacation? Our politicians, I really don't understand. I don't understand. Why are they not reading the room? They know that the issue right now, currently, is illegal immigration. They know it. They're just waiting to condemn the likes of Jacinta and the lady, I just don't know her name. What's her name? From Dudula Operation. They criticize them heavily. But these organizations are doing their job. This is what government was supposed to be doing. Who is our government right now? Our government is the GNU, Government of National Unity. They don't even get along there in the GNU. The ANC and the DA, they're constantly fighting. They will fight because even in terms of policies, they don't have similar policies. I don't know why they decided to work together. Why the ANC decided to work with the DA is beyond me. I'll never understand. And the reason, of course, they told us why. Fikile Mbalula explained why they chose the DA over the MKP and the EFF, but it's ridiculous. Now back to the point. All of them are not doing anything about illegal immigration. So South Africans are not safe at this moment. Anything can happen to anyone at any time. Because like I'm saying, people are missing. Left, right and center. People come into South Africa without papers. They are doing as they like. That's how the economy... Look at the USA. They struggled many of years with illegal immigration. USA is no longer the same. Donald Trump is trying to save the day, but it's no longer the same. The damage has been done. So South Africa, if you're not careful, you'll be like the USA. There's no way. You cannot give everybody free healthcare, free education, free... No, it's not going to happen. It can't be. So somebody's going to suffer. That's why what happened earlier on this year with school admissions and stuff like that. The government, politicians in South Africa don't care for South Africans. I'm telling you, none of them are patriots. None of them are patriots. Show me one who's a patriot. Because a patriot is going to do all it takes to make sure that South Africans are first. None of them are patriots. We keep voting for them, but these people are not patriots. They are thinking for self. How to enrich themselves, that's it. They're not patriots, and it's a problem.
A constitutional coup has just happened in Zimbabwe right now. The president of Zimbabwe, Emmerson Mnangagwa, has decided that he's going to stay in power forever. No one is going to stop him. Nothing is going to stop him. And here is the most shocking part of this. the people of Zimbabwe will never vote again because the parliament will do that for them.
Yes, you heard that right. President Emerson Mnangagwa, an 83-year-old man who seized power through a military coup, has just executed another coup. This time, he's done it with legislative paper and legal jargon, but make no mistake, this is a coup, a constitutional massacre, a daylight robbery of the people's sovereignty. And here's the truly horrifying part. Zimbabweans will never again vote for their president. Read that again, let it sink in, let it disturb you, because that's exactly what they want, for you to feel powerless. Under these demonic amendments, your vote, the single most powerful tool you have in a democracy, becomes worthless, meaningless, a theatrical performance with no consequence. Parliament will now choose the president, not you, not your mother struggling to feed her children, not your father who can't find work. Not the young graduate who left university with dreams, but found only broken promises. Not the vendors on the street trying to survive. None of you matter anymore. Instead, a group of ZANU-PF politicians, the same politicians who have driven Zimbabwe into the ground, who have stolen national resources, who have watched their people starve while they fatten themselves on corruption, these are the people who will now choose your president. And because ZANU-PF controls parliament with a supermajority, they can elect anyone they want, which means they will elect Mnangagwa again and again and again until he dies in office or decides, out of the goodness of his dictatorial heart, to hand power to his chosen successor. This is not democracy, this is a monarchy disguised in suits and ties. But wait, it gets worse. Presidential terms are being extended from 5 years to 7 years. Do the mathematics of tyranny. Mnangagwa, who was supposed to step down in 2028 after his constitutionally mandated 2 terms, can now remain in power until 2030. Then another 7 years until 2037, when he'll be 97 years old. 97 years old. By that time, an entire generation of Zimbabweans, children born today, will have grown into adults without ever experiencing what it means to choose their own leader. They will inherit a country where autocracy is normal, where constitutional manipulation is standard practice, where the people's voice is a historical curiosity that their grandparents talk about with nostalgia and pain. But here's the nightmare that should keep you awake at night. Who says it stops at 2037? If Parliament elects the President and ZANU-PF controls Parliament, what's to stop them from simply re-electing Mnangagwa indefinitely? Or electing his son, or his chosen puppet? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. This is how you create a dictatorship that lasts forever. This is how you ensure that one party, one family, one clique of corrupt politicians can feast on a nation's resources for generations while the people suffer in perpetual poverty and powerlessness. Why is Mnangagwa doing this? Why is an 83-year-old man so terrified of retirement that he's willing to destroy an entire nation's democratic framework? The answer should chill you to your bones. He's afraid of accountability. Think about it. Leaders who have served their people with integrity, who have governed honestly, who have nothing to hide, they step down peacefully. They retire with dignity. They become elder statesmen who are consulted and respected. But leaders who cling to power with such desperate violence, they have ghosts, they have secrets, they have blood on their hands and money in offshore accounts and crimes that sunlight would expose. Mnangagwa came to power through a military coup in 2017 that toppled Robert Mugabe after 37 years of dictatorship. There was gunfire, there were tanks. There was the Zimbabwe Defense Forces commander on national television announcing that this was not a coup, even as it was obviously a coup. And now, 7 years later, Mnangagwa is doing exactly what Mugabe did, refusing to leave office, manipulating the constitution, treating Zimbabwe as his personal property to be kept until death. The student has become the master of tyranny. He knows what happens to dictators who lose power. He's seen Charles Taylor die in prison. He's seen Hosni Mubarak stand trial. He's seen Laurent Gbagbo face international justice. He's seen Omar al-Bashir overthrown and arrested. So Mnangagwa has decided he will never let go.
Welcome to this amazing channel. Guys, today's video, we are going to talk about Pan-Africanism, and I know it's all that you love here. So there are a couple of videos that are in the social media spaces, and they are being talked about by so many people, and those are the videos that I want us to analyze, because all these videos are a collection of a wake-up call for Africa. Actually, what it does is that it's heavily on politics, it's heavily on history, and they add truths about why the continent is still struggling despite being so rich in resources. So what I want us to do is to break down the videos that we watched into a list, and then we analyze them. And you know what? If you notice, these particular videos, they are they are educational. It's something that if you watch, you're gonna learn something from it. And we watched a video, or one of the clips here, of Julius Malema telling us to stop blaming China and start blaming our own leaders here in Africa. So for those who don't know who Julius Malema is, he is a South African politician, and he is the leader of Economic Freedom Fighter Party that is in South Africa. He is popularly known for speaking his mind, and for sure in this clip he dropped a hard pill that feels so hard to swallow. So according to Malema, he is telling us that we cannot keep blaming China for bad deals, right? He's saying that if an African leader signs a deal that hurts his or her own country, that is his or her fault and not China's fault. He is actually telling us that what China does is that it has a policy, and that policy is of non-interference. Like, they don't tell you how to run your country after they help you out like the West does. So according to me, he has a point there, because guys, I know it's very easy to say that China is the new colonizer, but who holds the pen in this case? Julius Malema is telling us that African leaders need to negotiate with a backbone. If you go to the table feeling weak, you will get a very weak deal, and it's all about taking responsibility rather than just playing the victim. So, I mean, if you talk about money, who pays the bills and who makes the rules? That's our next video that we'll be talking about, because this video actually, it's on a very painful truth, sovereignty. So according to this clip, you know, this person is telling us that a country is not truly free if it depends on foreign donors to survive. And that is very true. You cannot say that you are free if you are still depending on foreign currency, foreign support, foreign donors to survive. You are not yet free. So if you have noticed something in that clip, is that history is being talked about. You know, it's reminding us of Britain, that Britain did not end slavery just because they suddenly became good people. No, they ended slavery because the economy system changed to capitalism, and of course the control did not disappear, it just changed the form. So my good people, according to my understanding or analysis, this is the classic golden rule, that he who finds gold makes the roles. I think that's what is happening now. And if any of your country's budget is funded by foreign aid, honestly speaking, you cannot really make independent decisions. Truth be said, you know. So, I mean, getting real freedom for most African nations has been really difficult because the only freedom that we got is that of getting a flag and a national anthem. But when it comes to economic independence, we never ever got it at all. And remember, that's what really matters. So I want us now to talk about Zimbabwe because there is a syndrome that has actually come up in Zimbabwe at the moment, and that is the forever president syndrome, which is not good at all because I mean people need to be electing different leaders each and every time. You know, we are not all the same in our leadership capacity, and that is why it is important to give different people so that we get to have different ideas being implemented each and every term depending on the number of years that takes you to finish a presidential term. For instance, in Kenya, it's 10 years. The first term around 4 to 5 years, the second one, yeah. So 10 to 8 years there, it depends. So my good people, something crazy is happening in this particular South African country, Zimbabwe, because currently there's a controversial video going on actually that people are talking about in the social media, whereby they want to extend the term limit. Like they actually want to remove, not really extend, they want to remove the term limit of a president of Zimbabwe, Mnangagwa. So what do I think about all this situation? Honestly, it's scary because not giving other people the chance to lead is not something that you can be proud of, especially in the 21st century. It's very dangerous. So, I mean, the president himself removing the term limit is equal as putting the country, Zimbabwe, into a turmoil, political instability. Because tell me why in the 21st century people would want to have the same president forever. So that's very risky. And remember that this particular trend that is happening in Zimbabwe at the moment is a trend that we often see in Africa. When you elect a leader, they come in and they want to change the constitution to favor them so that they can be in power for long. So I don't know, is this stability or is it just holding on to power? I don't know what you think about that, because when you take away the direct vote of the people, that means that you are walking a dangerous line, because this feeds into the stereotype that African leaders never want to leave office. That's a problem that we have been having here in Africa, and something needs to change. I think, was it Maponga who told us that Africa needs military leaders, people who say something today and they implement tomorrow, not democratically elected leaders. So now I want us to talk about Musa Ibrahim and the politics of Libya. His message is very simple, that if Africa wants to be free, it must control what it needs to survive. I mean, you cannot eat freedom. You need to control the food, the energy, and the resources, and that's when you'll be free. Once you control all the three items, then you can consider yourself free. So, honestly speaking, if you asked me what I think about what Ibrahim said, honestly, this statement ties everything together, whether it's Malema talking about deals or the Zimbabwe situation. All this comes down to ownership. If you don't own your resources, you are just a manager for someone else's business. That's the truth. It hurts, but it's the truth. So looking at this whole situation that we just talked about, it's clear that, it's all mental and economic emancipation. So here, what you are noticing is that there is a particular narrative that is really coming up, and that is Africa must stop begging and Africa must start negotiating from the strength point of view. We have to stop borrowing because it costs us our freedom, and we really need to watch our leaders. Are they really serving us? Is your leader serving you? Are they changing the rules to stay in power? Are they? So, my good people, all these statements from the clips, they are very powerful because it actually makes us think less about who is helping Africa and more about what is Africa doing for itself. I don't know what you think about this, our discussion today. Is Julius Malema right about China? Is the situation in Zimbabwe about stability or dictatorship? Let me know in the comment section. I appreciate your presence here, and I'll see you in the next video, my good people. Kindly subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next video.